The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar, and thank you very much for logging in today. Hopefully you've managed to get into our system okay, and apologies if you've had any difficulties. I know a few people have been in touch, but thank you again for attending our webinar on Go20. My name's Dave Nichols and I'm Professional Engagement Officer here with Break. I will leave introductions about Break and our workings to my colleague Ellie, who I'll pass over to in a moment. Just a small bit of housekeeping. With regards to the webinar, if this is your first time logging into one of our webinars, then just to let you know that you are currently on mute, and so there's no worries of your voice or anything being picked up on our webinar. If you have any questions at all through the whole of the webinar, then you can ask these questions by clicking on the question panel on your right-hand drop-down menu. So any moment during the presentations, if you'd like to ask a question, then please just type a question into that box, and I will be able to put the question to our speakers who have allotted time at the end of their presentation to take any questions. So please feel free to be as interactive as possible, and hopefully get involved and put any questions to our presenters, and hopefully if they can answer your questions, they will. If not, then we're more than happy to get back to you at the end of this webinar. This webinar is also being recorded, and we will share the recording along with presentation slides and any other helpful links at the end of this webinar. So hopefully there'll be a whole load of resources available for you, which my colleague Ellie will explain more. So as I said, I will now pass on to Ellie Pearson from Break and take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dave. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us, as Dave said. I manage Break's professional engagement team, so working with fleet and also road safety professionals such as yourself to share best practice and resources. You can see on the screen there just a few of the things that I'm going to cover today in my presentation. So a little bit more about Break and our wider remit, just for your background information. Then I'm going to talk to you about our Go20 campaign and the coalition that we're part of in pushing that campaign forwards. I'm going to talk to you about our Go20 toolkit, which will hopefully be very useful to you, lots of resources that we've got available for you for those of you that are already looking at moving forwards with 20 limits. And tell you a little bit more about our campaign activity, so how we're getting our Go20 messages out there, and the messaging itself, so the tone and content of that. And finally, I'm going to tell you a little bit about some Go20 research that we've been commissioned to do as well. So, first up, just a little bit of information about Break. So we are a UK-based road safety charity. We provide information and resources to a global market as well. That's something we started doing more recently. We've always, since we were first founded 20 years ago, had a very, very strong focus on working with road safety professionals to share best practice and hopefully to support you in your role as well, and provide you with some useful information and tools. So who are we and what do we do? Well, our vision as a charity is a world where there are 0 road deaths and injuries, and people can get about in ways that are safe, sustainable, healthy and enjoyable. So as you can see, Go20 is at the heart of what we're wanting to achieve. So what we mean by that vision is safety, so travel doesn't pose a threat to life or a threat of serious injury. It's sustainable, so it doesn't contribute to pollution and global warming significantly. Healthy, people can engage in active travel, getting around in ways that contribute to health and well-being, and enjoyable. So travel is enjoyable for all, local communities are enjoyable for all, and children and adults have the freedom to move around their communities actively, on foot, on bike, on horse, and experience and enjoy the world around them. So we want communities to be a place that people want to be and can move around in without fear, threat, health risk or discomfort. So as I say, this all ties in very, very strongly with our Go20 campaign. In terms of what we do to achieve these aims, we campaign for road safety. So we're at the forefront of campaigns to reduce urban speed limits to 20 miles per hour. and we also campaign on a lot of different issues like reducing the drink drive limit. We educate and advise people about using roads safely and sustainably, particularly driving more safely and driving less. So this webinar is an example of us providing information and advice, but we also do a lot of work just more generally in terms of getting best practice safety messages out there to the public. We engage companies, communities and schools, so we coordinate projects such as National Road Safety Week, which is coming up in November, and again is on the theme of sustainability. The theme this year is Car Less, Care More, so that ties in very, very strongly with the messages of today's webinar, and it's potentially something you might want to look to get involved in this year. And that's all about helping communities to run their own road safety initiatives. We also do specific guidance for road safety and fleet professionals, so we run a membership scheme, Brake Professional, and annual awards schemes, as well as events, webinars and seminars like today's. The other aspect of Brake's work, which is incredibly, incredibly important to what we do, is we support people who have been affected by road crashes through a national hotline and support literature, which, you know, we're providing a lifeline to bereaved and injured families in their darkest hours, and that's also central to what we do in our vision. So, I mentioned that we've been operating for 20 years, and at the heart of our campaigns over the past 20 years has been the idea of safe, active, happy communities. As I say, Go20 is central to this, with the key focuses of road safety and sustainability coming together very closely in this flagship campaign. You can just see on screen there some of the other areas that we have flagship campaigns on, so safe driving for work, driver eyesight, tougher punishments for drivers who break the law, zero tolerance on drink and drug driving, and pushing for training and testing reform are some of our other key areas that we work in alongside the Go20 message. Key to our campaigning work is partnership work. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit later about our Go20 coalition that we're involved in, and you'll also be hearing from Anna from 20 to Plenty, who are another member of that coalition. What Brake does is work very, very closely with other charities, with other organisations, with professionals such as yourselves to bring about these changes, and that's always been a central part of how we work and something that we'll be continuing to do through this campaign. So why Go20? I am not going to go through this in a massive amount of detail because I know Anna is going to cover that as part of her presentation later. But you can see there, for any of you who are still not 100% sure on the benefits of Go20, an outline in terms of casualty reductions, the positive impact it has on people being able to lead healthy, active lifestyles, creating sociable communities where people can really get about safely and enjoy their local community. The effect that it has on pollution, on lower costs, particularly for the NHS, and also there's kind of a public health benefit in terms of enabling and encouraging more walking and cycling. So there are a lot of reasons to Go20. The business case, if you like, is very strong for 20 limits. And as I say, Anna will draw on that a little bit more later in the webinar. The Go20 Coalition. So you can see on screen there some of the charities that are involved in the Go20 Coalition. Obviously, Brake is part of this, and we're basically a group of charities calling for 20-mile-per-hour limits to become the norm in cities, towns and villages to make them safer, healthier, more sociable. Ultimately, what we are calling for as a coalition is we want the government to change the national default urban speed limit from 30 miles per hour to 20 miles per hour. Alongside this, we're asking local authorities to Go20 by implementing widespread 20 limits in their own areas. The government has actually issued guidance to encourage this, and many places have already gone 20 or are in the process of going 20, which is wonderful to see. Unfortunately, some local authorities haven't been able to go 20 yet. That's why we're wanting the government to end the kind of postcode lottery element of going 20 by changing the national default limit. We also, as a coalition and Brake ourselves, advise and ask drivers everywhere to help making communities safer by pledging to go 20 and slowing down to 20 miles per hour in these community areas, even if the limit is still 30. So this is central to our messaging to drivers, that even if their area hasn't gone 20 yet, or you know, the government hasn't taken action on the national default, they can still make a difference in their day-to-day journeys. So we have a lot of resources that we have developed over the last couple of years to go alongside our Go 20 campaign. You can see this bright yellow screen that's up now. It's got a bit of a snapshot of some of our resources. To give you an idea, we have posters, both hard copy posters that you can order from Brake and also e-posters that you can download and print yourself or share electronically. We have web banners, we have adverts that you can use, share on intranets, websites, in local papers and so on. And we also have fact sheets and infographics about the benefits of going 20 that can be used. So we've got quite a lot of resources there that you can see. They are all freely available, so if you go to brake.org.uk and then into our campaigns section, you'll see the Go 20 campaign as one of our flagship campaigns, and if you click on that, you can download or order all of the resources for free there. Alternatively, you can get in touch with Dave and myself at professional@brake.org.uk, and we will be able to sort some resources out for you as well. So we've talked a little bit about the coalition and the resources we have to sit alongside that. How do we deliver the message ourselves at Brake? We do a lot of work to encourage local residents and the public generally to get involved in the campaign. We provide them with sample tools so that they can write to their MPs about the issues. They can set up press releases to send out to the local press, advice on how they can set up localised petitions and campaigns or street party events to support Go 20. We also point them in the direction of 20s Plenty's local campaign groups that they can get involved with or set up. So a lot of this is about community engagement and helping people to see the benefits of their area going 20, so that the push for Go 20 is coming from local residents. We also do a lot of work campaigning in Parliament. So we run parliamentary receptions for MPs where we talk to them about the benefits of Go 20. We have bereaved volunteers that we work with who've been affected by road crashes, who will come along and talk to the MPs about why they feel it's important that this step is taken. We do a lot of media work on this as well, so we get a lot of national coverage from the likes of Daybreak, Newsround, Sky, 5 Live, and also a lot of cover on a more regional level, people like the Yorkshire Post, for instance, just to make sure that those messages are staying out there and are strong in the public eye. And finally, we use a lot of social media. So we did a thunderclap where we had more than 200,000 people get involved and retweet our Go 20 messages. So it's all about keeping the message strong and in the public eye for us in terms of our work there. The message itself is a very positive one. So nudge theory is the idea that you should be nudging people towards positive behavioural change, which is why our Go 20 messaging tends to focus on the benefits of going 20, so the effect it will have on community safety, on the environment, on creating a sense of community, and also on health and financial benefits, both for individuals and local authorities. That's really important to us, that we're getting messages out there that people should want to do this because it will create nicer, better communities for them to be in, rather than talking about the negative effects if they don't go 20. So that's a very effective, successful way of campaigning on this issue. Final thing that I mentioned that I want to talk to you about is our Go 20 research project. So you can see from the screen there that it is due for release in September 2015. Just to tell you a little bit more about what this project will be. It's designed to look at the shape of 20-mile-per-hour limits across the UK, and where councils have gone 20, how and why they've done it, and where they haven't chosen to go 20, what have been the factors that have led them to make that decision. A central theme of the research is exploring the national case of 20-mile-per-hour limits, so things like not having to have so many signage changes and so on. But it should also be very useful for local authorities to see what's going on in other councils and how and why the decisions around Go 20 have been made, so almost a bit of a benchmarking process. So a lot of the data that we'll be using for this project has come from a Freedom of Information request that we issued to councils across Great Britain. A lot of you may have received those requests if you are here from local authorities. Alongside that, we are also doing a literature review. So in terms of where we're at right now, we are analysing the data from our Freedom of Information requests. But in terms of how we're analysing that, it's aimed to look beyond KPIs. So rather than just looking at the immediate financial cost or saving of doing this, looking at the wider benefits of Going 20. So for instance, that it creates safe communities for walking and cycling. It's worth mentioning we are obviously aware that there's a Government Department for Transport research in progress on this topic as well. That's due out in a few years. So as will come out before that piece of research, but also we're looking to look at it less in terms of the KPIs, as I say, and more in terms of contextualising Go 20 in a social context. So not just looking at the benefits of the limits and the wider benefits of them, but also the ways in which hearts and minds have to be won in the process of Going 20. The final thing that I would like to say on this is we are very, very, very grateful to all of the councils who have replied to that Freedom of Information request. Tom Fisher, Dr. Tom Fisher, who is our head of research here, is incredibly grateful for all the work that you've done, and we couldn't be doing this research without those responses, so thank you very much. That is all from me, so hopefully a bit of a snapshot of the work that we're doing here at Break, and I will now pass you back to Dave.
Hi, thank you very much, Ellie, for that. If anybody has any questions at all for Ellie or for the Break team, then feel free to put them to us, but I suspect your questions would be more aimed at our next speakers. So I will shortly pass on to Anna from 20's Plenty for Us, and then we also have Tim from Calderdale Council. So two really knowledgeable speakers that we've managed to secure for today's webinar, so we really appreciate their time as well. So as I say, we will now hand over to Anna from 20's Plenty for Us, who I know many of you will know from the work that you do. A lot of campaigners and councils on the line today. So hopefully you'll be aware of some of the work, but hopefully it will give you a good insight into the work that they do and how they can help and assist yourselves in your jobs. So hopefully over to yourself, Anna.
Hello. So first of all, my name is Anna Semlian. I'm 20's Plenty for Us National Campaign Manager. Can you see my presentation?
Yeah, that's all fine, Anna. Thank you.
Okay. I've also been a City Councillor with City of York Council and Head of Scrutiny for the Council on Transport. I've written a book on traffic reduction, and I've been a road casualty victim myself twice. I work for 20's Plenty, and I've done that for 5 years. Rod King MBE, who won a MBE for road safety, is the director. He set it up in 2007. I'm National Campaign Manager paid, and Jeremy Leach does London. We've got nearly 270 branches of volunteer activists, and we're up to 14.5 million people who live in committed places to 20. So that's the background to 20's Plenty for Us. We're a small organisation. We appreciate our volunteers very much. They're the heart of the grassroots campaigning that we do, at local level, making the case for 20 from the community. Total 20 is what we campaign for. We say 20 is safer than 30, you don't need humps, and everybody deserves safer streets. If you agree with all three of those, Total 20 is a wide area 20-mile-an-hour limit policy, and it's possible to accept some roads, have some default roads that stay at 30 or above, but they need to be decided on a case-by-case basis for the 30 and aboves. We're asking the government for Total 20 by 2020, where the government planned for a change in the national speed limit. Currently, local authorities have to decide on an individual basis with localism. 40 plus places already agree that 20 is plenty, including most of the largest 40 local authorities in Britain. This is a cartographic map showing the green areas have already gone 20. This was updated last March last year. Authorities committed are yellow, and everywhere else hasn't done it yet. So what's the problem? It's that road danger costs us a lot of money. There are at least 10 billion in road casualty costs, another 10 billion in damage-only collisions, and then a lot of money in suppressed physical activity. We think it's at least 21 billion a year, or 337 per head, but not including disability benefits and all the problems that go with bereavement and serious injury for families. The Department for Transport say it could be as much as 34 billion, which is 540 per head. If you compare that, for instance, to low back pain, which is also something I'm big interested in, low back pain is about half of that. So road casualties are enormously costly, and at 20 miles an hour you're 7 times more likely to survive than at 30. And for a 60-plus-year-old, this is about half and half survival at 30. Of course, our population is ageing, more dementia. I think older people arguments work quite well on councillors because they tend to be retired men. 20% fewer crashes and casualties in built-up Total 20 areas. Basically, we ask for road danger reduction at source, whereas traditional road safety is trying to get the vulnerable away from cars, separation, i.e. exposure reduction. No, we don't want that. We want road danger reduction. We want car drivers to go slower. So we've got various briefing sheets, and participants were sent the Total 20 Getting It Right briefing. We talk about signed mandatory 20-mile-an-hour limits, the red signs, circle signs with a red circle around it. We want no humps unless absolutely required, because we want a wide area scheme. Social engagement, much more than traffic engineering. And we think everybody needs to agree a vision that are the leaders, the councillors, the public health, stakeholders like the police and so on, and then do coordinated, sustained marketing of the benefits to raise driver compliance. Drivers need to know why 20 is plenty in order to obey it, first of all. So how to get it right? First stage is cross-party political and multi-agency support on a vision. You might have a stakeholder briefing event. Rod has been to many of these. Invite everybody who really matters to bring their joint resources to the table. Liverpool are a good example of having done this. Public health, NHS, police, fire, council, they all got together and agreed a 20 is plenty vision. You need expert resident engagement on the benefits and exceptions. The messages must motivate drivers. Liverpool have found that child safety is the #1 motivating message. And this has to be got across by public health promotion experts. Transport officials are not usually very good at marketing behaviour change, so you need professionals to do that. Don't bother with small trials. They don't show much effect, and there have been plenty of them done already. We need to lobby the government for changes in signage rules and sign the 30 miles an hour. If 90% of your roads are going 20, obviously you only sign the 10% of them, you would save a lot of money and fewer repeater signs. Go as large as possible, bulk buy, include the maximum of road lengths, because that actually cuts down costs per head. Make 20-mile-an-hour areas join up. You shouldn't just do casualty black spots or health inequality black spots. You need the whole area of the urban area, whether it's a village, town, city, to go 20 as far as possible. Consult on exceptions with the public. ask what should stay 30 rather than what should go 20. You've decided you're going 20 by this point before you go out to consult with the public who don't know the public health benefits as well as the professionals do. Continued version of this is limit your monitoring of pre-speeds and technical changes, because most of this will not give you useful data. You're only going to look at the roads that are going to stay 30, really, as giving you any useful information. Issue your traffic regulation orders in the media and on lampposts. Don't bother to every home, because they're technical documents that most homeowners are not going to engage with the legal stuff on them. Implement it in one great big go, if you can. Second best is by geographic area, like city centre, south of the river, above the railway. It's got to make sense geographically rather than by ward, which are artificial boundaries really in terms of driving. You could do pizza slices outward away from the centre if necessary. You've got to communicate about the limits to drivers before and after the implementation. It's no good going 20 and expecting people to understand it straight away. It's got to be at least 6 months lead up explaining why drivers need to slow down and obey the mandatory signs, the red signs. Co-production marketing is important. This is piggybacking and sharing videos on whatever is community events are already happening. Liverpool, the 20 Effect, SOMO productions are fantastic at this. You want people to share why 20 is plenty on their own Twitter, on their own Facebooks, in their own newsletters and media, so that the marketing is coming from authentic voices from the community. Do driver pledges to go at the maximum of 20. Monitor the success of your messaging. This is all that really matters. If the messaging is working, then the speeds will come down. There's no point monitoring the success of speed reductions before you've got the marketing and the messaging right. Remove unnecessary signs, why not, while you're doing it. Celebrate the 20 mph limits. Manchester is offering £200 grants to any community group holding a 20 mph event. This is fantastic. This is their smiley face logo at the bottom. Police enforcement. Now this is important, and light touch occasional enforcement is what we hope for at the beginning. Later on it might be digital cameras on high before speed roads. And you need to monitor resident satisfaction, not speed changes, except on a few marginal roads. Don't make it political. Don't spend a lot on consultation on should this place be 20 as a question. The general population don't know all the evidence. You only ask which roads are excluded from the 20 mph vision. Don't do small areas of high need. Don't do lots of pre-speed surveys, no point. Don't calculate network-wide average speed changes, because that doesn't matter in terms of what you really want is the faster pre-speed roads to go down. Don't skimp on social marketing. You need people to understand why they should comply. Healthy behaviour change promotion experts use authentic local voices, local children, to say why 20 is plenty. Spend a lot of the project costs on engagement, at least 20%, and Calderdale, you'll hear later on, is spending more than that. 8-year-old girl cycling or scooting, I think, is the image of a good 20 mph campaign. Parents with a pushchair, elderly. Do not have people in high visibility. That makes it that the vulnerable need to be in high vis for road safety, which is not the message. We need ordinary people, real people endorsing 20 mph, particularly if they're community heroes like footballers in Liverpool. That's what's happened there. Community people whose voices matter. Don't just have signs or cartoons. This is actually about people and saving people from heartache and helping them to be healthier. These are some of the banners in York outside a school. Don't squash me is the message there outside St George's School. The aim is to get most drivers to believe that most other drivers are doing it and agree with 20. You will need social normality. That is the point of this. What's value for money? You can calculate pounds per person. You can calculate the active lifestyle gains, which are the biggest gain, but that needs a health economics tool. You could calculate first-year rates of return on casualties. There are also massive savings on fuel use, road wear, signage, lighting, the NHS costs. The cost and compliance, it's all about cost effectiveness, and you're trying to minimise cost per kilometre while maximising driver compliance in the long term. The way to get that is cross-party agreement, multi-agency working, lots of education and some enforcement. Limits are far more cost-effective than zones. Zones have humps. They're about 50 times more expensive in terms of the mile per hour reduced. So you're going to link existing zones with limits in order to join up the areas in your city or town or village. These are some of the costs per head. Tower Hamlets so far is the cheapest per head at £1.77. Bristol at the higher end is £6.30. They did it with as an early project with 8 different rollout portions in their rollout. So you can see most people are coming in about £2 to £4 per head, which is pretty cheap when you think that road danger is costing 500 and so on, so per year per head. The biggest gains are in public health. You're looking for helping the people who are obese. There's 52% of people are too heavy. Very few children or adults are exercising enough, and particularly older people who have difficulty with exercise. So if you want good value, you bulk buy. You include as many roads as possible in the same traffic regulation orders, including A roads. You try and have few large gateway signs. You want conformity of limit because that is going to give you better compliance. Islington, Camden, City of London, they've done 100% of borough roads, and Transport for London are now doing some red roads, the trunk roads in London. Why do one-off installation? Because the marketing is much simpler. Everybody benefits. It's fair to drivers. If my own street is going 20, of course I want to drive slower in other people's too, because that's fair. The message is simple. The message is consistent. Such and such town or village is going 20 on such and such date. It improves compliance and therefore cost effectiveness. You want less consultation, therefore more social marketing if you do anything else. So one-off installation is what I recommend. We can afford it. It's only £3 per head. It costs about £600,000 for somewhere like York, which is the same as 2 traffic light junctions. It's cheap as chips in transport installation costs term, the capital costs. The earn back is if you just prevent 1 fatality or 3 serious injuries. If you can combine different funds together, it could be local transport plan, directors of public health, improvement budgets, Transport for London, Cycling City, community infrastructure. Sustrans have even paid some money in Scotland, new homes bonus, borrowing, public finance initiative, developer funding with Section 106. The LEPs, the local economic partnerships, have got the big money these days. You could spend parking surplus, you could do road tolls, congestion charges. There's lots of different ways of getting the money together. So if you just get the partners around the table and go, who can contribute what? Public health might say, well, we've got good experts on giving messaging. The fire service might say, well, we can put some signs on our fire engines like they do in Liverpool, and so on. Warrington gave a first-year rate of return of 800%, so it paid for itself in 2 months. It gives better competitive advantage to a city with greater footfall and lower fuel use, smoother traffic, healthy public realm, so on. How are you going to get compliance? We think it's beyond signs on sticks. It's about using everybody you can. Multi-agency support, the council and everybody else, public health, NHS, fire, emergency services, so on, ambulances. You want health promo. Liverpool, the NHS were paying 40% of the costs of the health promo, and SOMO do it very well. 20 mile-an-hour logos on fire engines, I've mentioned. The police do some fixed penalty notices. You could get schools involved. You could get the residents' associations. You should get your local 20's Plenty for Us branch to help you. You can get different groups involved. So I want to do some case studies. We're looking at Edinburgh first of all. South Central Edinburgh's 20 mile-an-hour limit trial. Support rose from 68% before to 79% after. This is good politics. People will vote for this because support rises once you've done it. Those saying cycling unsafe fell from 26% to 18%. Important for public health. Children cycling to school tripled from 4 to 12%. For older primary age, it rose from 3 to 22%, so it went up 7 times. This is a massive success for cycling. Children allowed to play on the pavement and street doubled to 66%. And children are far more active when they're outdoors than indoors. Walking trips rose, cycling trips rose, car trips fell. There is evidence of traffic reduction from 20 miles an hour. Speeds fell, an average 1.9 miles per hour, but that's not important. It's more like 3.3 miles per hour where before speeds were higher. Now every 1 mile per hour is 6% fewer casualties. So my next slide on Edinburgh. In the trial, police wardens were resourced, so you did actually get speed concern letters to drivers over 25 miles per hour. It's important to have some feedback to the speeders. After 3 years, which I would say was far too long of consultation, a network of over 80% of roads are now going to go 20. The cost is 2.2 million. This is being paid for partly by the council, about half by the council, and then some from Scottish Government, and the charity Sustrans are paying some money for it as well. £4.40 per head, excluding the trial and excluding extensive consultation. It includes main shopping streets, which we think is very important. You want the footfall in the city centre to maintain in the time of the internet as a shopping alternative. Special dispensation for 20 mile an hour repeater signs every 200 metres. Normally it's 100 metres, so they got their repeater signs cost down by a half, which is brilliant and we think important. They have a Vision Zero, zero casualty aim, which Brake have now advertising as well, and this is important to me. I'm starting Vision Zero UK with a conference on the 15th of October in Camden, asking for the English government to have any kind of road safety aim. Currently they don't have one, and I think it should be Vision Zero. This is Bristol. We're moving on to Bristol as a case study. Bristol's poster I think is very good. Here you've got 2 young girls on their scooters. Well, of course we want to protect them. They're real people having fun on a safer street. Great poster. Case study for Bristol. Public health are embedded in the transport department. You've got Adrian Davis there. Bristol is winning loads of awards for livability and sustainability. It's the European Green Capital winner this year. There's strong political support from the mayor. It was decided in 2010 in the Joint Local Transport Plan to go 20. Pilots went in, the rollout started fully in 2014 and has finished recently. They did 8 phases, which I think is too many. The Cycling City project first of all paid for it with Bristol City and South Gloucestershire councils. They funded a pilot, 2 pilots really, for 430k, which is a lot of money for pilots. The rest of the rollout is costing 2.3 million over 3 years, £6.30 per head, which is pretty high actually. It was paid for by local sustainable transport fund, which isn't available anymore. Cycling and walking rose very strongly in the pilots. There is some concern about the way that the statistics were done on that, but definitely both cycling and walking rose a lot. You can look up more on Bristol 22milesperhour.co.uk. Fantastic site with videos, journey time estimates, lots of facts. Really recommend their site. Resident support rose hugely as part of after the implementation. You can show your politicians it's rising, and on all residential streets it rose from 67% to 83%. Graz in Austria is another place where support rose enormously after implementation. People do not want rid of their 20 miles an hour because it's more popular afterwards. So that's what I had prepared. You can join our 2020 for Us briefings email list by emailing me anna.s@2020forus.org.uk. We've put out, I think, 16 or 17 briefing sheets already this year and press releases. We've got lots of information on our site. There are over 60 briefing sheets, many, many press releases, videos. We are the national experts comparing the different 20 mile an hour implementations around the country because we only focus on 20. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Anna. I have a couple of questions that have come in for you if you're happy to take them.
Yes.
So Amy Burbridge says, what recommended percentage of funds would you put towards marketing about the 20 mile an hour once implemented, and what percentage for monitoring afterwards? I know it's quite a broad question, but do you have any kind of expertise on percentage, for funding for the actual market?
It's very important to market the benefits before the signs go up. So 6 months before and 18 months after is the minimum length of time. And then, of course, it depends on how effective the marketing is at piggybacking on other events. You can market alongside fairs and schools and football grounds, much cheaper than trying to do the marketing all yourself. So clever marketing would be like 20%. And I think if you really wanted to work, if you really wanted high compliance, then 50% of the budget.
Brilliant, thank you, Anna. That's helpful. There's another one come in, but it's more of a comment really than a question. But you might have some advice on it. I think it's from the same lady. Yeah, it's from the same lady actually, Amy. So she's basically saying about shire authorities with separate rural villages. So talking about them working together with other villages to go 20 together, but she's saying basically the advice has been not to do that from Cambridge Council, County Council, sorry, as objections to other implementations might take their one down. So she says they know the adjacent villages interested in going 20, but much harder to join up as parishes, and think it would be much better if the County Council would rather who is interested.
Let's go back to deciding who makes the choice. If the County Council decide that they have a vision for Cambridgeshire to be 20, for better public health, for better livability, then once the County Council has decided they want 20, all they're doing is consulting on exceptions. So why would it be a problem to consult on exceptions in multiple villages all at once?
Yep, so it'd be much easier that way.
Yeah. You don't ask the individual villages, do you want to go 20? You go, where do you want to stay 30? That is the correct question to people who don't know the public health evidence.
No, I think that's really helpful, and I think that that does help answer that question. If you do have any questions at all for Anna at all that you think of, then do please feel free to put them to us, and we can go back to Anna at the end. If not, then if you think of any questions at the end of the webinar, then we can easily email them to Anna and get any responses to you. So thank you very much, Anna, for your time and for that presentation. So next we will be hearing from Tim Robinson from Calderdale Council. So Tim is actually here with us at the Brake offices to do his presentation, so I'm going to hand over the microphone to him shortly. Likewise, if you have any questions at all for Tim, then please do not hesitate to put the questions to him as we go through, and we can put those questions to him.
Thank you, David, for that introduction. Thank you to Anna as well, and to Ellie for their very interesting presentations. My presentation maybe won't have as many statistics in as Anna's, but hopefully it gives you a bit of an understanding of where public health are with the 20s. But first of all, just to give you a bit of context as to who I am. Bear with us a second. I am not qualified in public health in disciplines. I am more of a highways transportation engineering background. In 1996, I qualified in civil engineering and worked as a setting out engineering, civil engineering contractor. And then in 1997, moved over to work in a highways consultancy in the private sector. From then on, 2001 to 2008, I moved to work for a local authority, principally dealing with the transport issues of planning applications, in other words, highways development control. And then from 2008, I moved over to Calderdale, where I was a group engineer, which included, as well as highways development control, the function of road safety, dealing with the local transport plan, school crossing patrols, and managing the bikeability team. And then in 2015, I moved sideways, if you like, into a new role as a senior public health manager, where the Public Health Director was very keen on me looking at setting up a team which was about active travel and health improvement, which includes the 20 mile an hour, includes road safety education, and obviously managing the school crossing patrol team and the bikeability team. So that's me in a nutshell. I just wanted to get that out there because I don't want people to think that I am significantly experienced in public health. But nevertheless, I hope that gives you a bit of context. So I thought it was worthwhile for people who may not know, don't know why public health is part of the local authority. Just to give you a bit of background, public health moved into local authorities in 2013 as part of the Health and Social Care Act. Local authorities are required to embed those new public health functions into all their activities and tailoring those local solutions to local problems and using all levers they have at their disposal to improve health and reduce inequalities. The Act placed a duty on local authorities to improve health and well-being for their populations, but more importantly is that it's to influence health rest within the remit of the local authority as a place shaper. In terms of one of those functions, health improvement, it's about increasing activity in order to tackle physical activity in order to tackle obesity, heart disease and stroke. And forgive me, people, if you have already heard this with the previous presentations, but you know, this is my my presentation in terms of what I think is relevant. Definition of physical activity was simply the body movement that expends energy and raises the heart rate. What constitutes physical inactivity? Well, it's less than 30 minutes physical activity per week. Physical activity comes in many forms, as we all know, but it's predominantly walking, running, cycling, and swimming. Oh, sorry about that. So what's the commercial interest? Well, ultimately it's about investing to save, to assist in managing and reducing future demand on frontline services in the NHS. The cost of running the NHS will exceed 30 billion in the next 5 years, and that's clearly unsustainable. Physical activity, as my public health director says, is a silver bullet to combating heart disease. Silver bullet is a bit of contradiction in terms of when we were talking about health, but it is an effective weapon. Again, slightly incorrect terminology, but it is so effective at combating heart disease because it is effectively free for everybody. I don't know if anybody watched the Panorama documentary on Monday night. It was called NHS: The Perfect Storm, and I was bowled over by this chap called Dr. Simon Bowers, who's the vice chair of the Liverpool Clinical Care Group, and he said quite a profound statement that I thought I'd share with you. 30 minutes walking 5 times a week reduces risk of heart attack or stroke more than any pill I can prescribe. Now just think about that for a moment, because I mean that is such a massive statement in its own right. I think it puts it in context what it is that public health, 20's Plenty, Break are trying to do. I find that a real heavyweight piece of information, and I implore you to watch on iPlayer, if you've got iPlayer, the NHS The Perfect Storm program. It was really interesting, and that was what they're trying to do in Liverpool. Now, some of you will have seen this before. You may have seen it when it was talking about deaths in 2008. What I tried to do is I tried to update this using our public health intelligence team at Calderdale, and we came up with this, but it basically puts into context what the deaths are associated with coronary heart disease, which is attributed to inactivity. You compare that to the total amount of fatalities on the roads. You can see that there's a massive difference there, and then as you go further to the left, you see how many pedal cyclists killed. I mean, I'm not saying that that's justifiable in any way, shape or form, but it was just really to give people context as to what we're talking about here in terms of deaths associated with the lack of physical activity. So how do we contribute to increasing physical activity? Well, as you've seen before, evidence would suggest some of the barriers to walking and cycling is simply the amount of traffic on our residential streets and roads. This is also compounded by the speed of traffic. In other words, vehicle traffic dominates the street scene. So the challenge is to create a more balanced environment for all road users. Now, one option is to create livable streets. Introduction of 20s in residential areas is part of a package of measures that can improve health in the community. By reducing the speed limit from 30 to 20, you'd expect to see a reduction in accident severity. Well, I think we all agree on that, but that's not all. 20 limits also create a more positive environment whereby residents feel more comfortable and less at risk. Psychological barriers to walking and cycling are reduced and streets become more sociable areas, in other words, livable streets. Again, you probably know the majority of these. What are the health benefits of 20s? So if we can reduce vehicle speeds and reduce the amount of traffic on residential streets, those health benefits are tangible. Parents are less anxious about their child playing in the street, resulting in children playing out more and therefore becoming more physically active. And I think Anna talked about that with the evidence from Edinburgh. A better environment for cycling and walking leads to more trips undertaken without using the car. More children walk to school, more adults walk to work. Air quality is improved as a result of reduction in vehicle trips. Air quality is improved as 20 cuts out unnecessary acceleration and braking and improves traffic flows. I think just focusing on that for a moment, I'll be honest, when I first started to look at 20s, I was a little bit skeptical about how 20 mile an hour can possibly reduce emissions and improve air quality. And I think a lot of it simply comes down to the fact that you are not accelerating up to 30 miles an hour and you're not braking as much. You're driving at 20 miles an hour or around about that figure. And you're smoother in terms of your driving. I think there's still people out there, skeptics, who disagree with that. I think when we do consultation, people say, how can I drive at 20 miles an hour in 5th or 6th gear? I have to drive at 20 miles in 3rd gear, and that's clearly more engine revs. I think the argument still needs more debate on it to discuss with those who are still sceptical over that statement. Improved fitness improves mental health and well-being. I think from my point of view, moving from a highways and engineering role into a public health role, I never considered mental health in terms of the impacts of what we do. It's such a massive issue with mental health for us all to consider in whatever jobs we do, because it has a direct effect on the well-being of a community. More activity on streets reduces the level of isolation and loneliness. Another one, again, moving from highways into public health, I never really understood the impact of isolation and loneliness. You know, and if we're creating an environment which reduces the amount of traffic, do people, particularly elderly people, feel less isolated and therefore build up acquaintances with people because they may be out more, because the environment, the livable streets, promoting, you know, their desire to get out. So I think that's a real key one, is loneliness and isolation. Neighbours build friendships and acquaintances and look out for each other. And public health is very keen with promoting care closer to home. That's getting people out of hospitals quicker and getting them into an environment where they're back at home, independent, but they have both voluntary organisations, friends, and the NHS there to support them, as opposed to them being in hospital for an extended stay. And then obviously the one that we're all pretty much aware of, which is reduction in severity of personal injury accidents. A key one still, but I put it at the end because I think most people know about that, particular benefit. Now, I'm not saying that 20s are the complete solution. I don't think Anna is, and I don't think Rod King is, and I don't even think Break the Charity is. We're not as arrogant to think that this will solve all the problems in terms of public health interests. So it's not a magic wand to solving the problem of obesity, heart disease, and strokes. It's about a package of measures, of which 20 is one of them. 20s can sow the seed for behavioural change that leads to more physical lifestyles and therefore improved health. But it's bigger than that. much bigger than that. Where do other stakeholders and other organisations fit into promoting physical activity? Well, forgive me now because I'm going to go on a bit of a rant here, because the planning policy side of stuff I think has got a big part to play in why we've got such a problem with obesity, particularly in children. Now, this is only a personal opinion, but dealing with planning applications from a highways point of view over the last decade, you tend to see housing developments that have really small, inadequate garden space, and it's the size of a postage stamp where all you can put on is a garden shed and that's it. And to me, the density issue where we cram as many houses into a hectare as possible has a real negative effect on the future health of a community. And I am very passionate about seeing bigger garden spaces associated with houses. So that's kind of like a view from me on that. I mean, it'd be interesting to know whether or not other people agree on that. I think it's such a shame to have a brand new house built with a minute garden. Moving on, education policy, schools to provide more extracurricular activities. I think there's a massive role to play from an education point of view, and really we should be spending a lot more time, particularly at primary school level, where we make sports days and sports fun, and maybe not concentrate as much on the academic side of stuff. It's concentrate on the actual physical activity side of stuff as well. Parent buy-in. Parental support and enthusiasm can heavily influence a child's behaviour to be more active. I'm concentrating on children a little bit here, and you might wonder why I might not be looking at other groups, but with children we have an opportunity to influence their behaviour, their mentality over physical activity at an early age, which will hopefully lead into adult life. And I think it's key that we get into those communities and try and get parents to buy into it so that they can relay that message to the children. Working closely with CCGs, GP practices, voluntary organisations to educate local communities and promote the benefits of livable streets. But it's this last point here that I really like. It's thinking a bit more laterally about the problem. And one of the examples that I've got to discuss with you is increasing the number of public seating in the community for elderly people to take a pit stop, if you like. And there's a lot of elderly people out there that have range anxiety. And what we mean by that is the shops may only be 300 or 400 yards away, but on a day like today, I mean, I'm looking at Huddersfield over St George's Square here, and it's pretty warm out there, and it's very close. And I can imagine elderly people just simply not wanting to go out and walk because they've nowhere to stop, sit down and have a rest 100, 200 yards down the road on the way to the shop. And to me, I think that's a really key point. And the reason I bring that up is there's already been a bit of research done on it. And when I was at the 20th conference in Cambridge back in March, Nicola Wass from SOMO did a presentation on this. And it really impressed me, that it's not just about trying to promote physical activity. It's about providing infrastructure in place where people can actually sit down, like in this particular instance, and basically get out more. So to me, why not have in a livable street seating every 50 metres? Yeah, okay, it might be a bit expensive. Oh, and I'm sure we will have highways engineers that the maintenance engineers that will be saying, well, who's going to look after these seats? You know, will they be vandalised? Personally, I think we've got to get over that mentality. I appreciate the fact that we're in austere times and, you know, we have to watch our budgets and budgets are being cut. But is there something here where voluntary organisations can sponsor a park bench? Can we get funding to raise money for park benches in a 20-mile-an-hour, or would a company look to sponsor one? A bit like what you see with signs on roundabouts. I think there's something there that really could help to promote physical activity, particularly with the elderly. But it's not just about the elderly. Anybody obviously sit down on a park bench in weather like this. You know, a young parent with a couple of children, for instance, may choose to do so. I'll give you a minute to just look at this. Forgive me for those who've already seen it, but again, I think this shows the what we're trying to do here in terms of reducing isolation, loneliness, and allowing people to build up acquaintances and friends. You can see on the top there that in light traffic you get a lot more pedestrian activity, and these lines are pedestrian movements, if you like, from one property, whether or not it's on a high street or whether or not it's a shop or a residential property. And you can see that light traffic equates to maybe 3 friends per person or 6.3 acquaintances. Yes, I know it sounds a bit kind of technical in terms of those 6.3 acquaintances, but what I'm trying to do is just show you an example of something where how traffic does affect that permeability, that movement of pedestrians from one side of the road to another, and how it influences the social interaction between communities. So moderate traffic, you can see there's a significant drop, and heavy traffic, it's even less. I really like that slide, just to give you a bit of an indication of what we mean by the less traffic on the roads, the more interaction we have from a social point of view. So in terms of an ultimate aim, we've heard about this default speed of 20 miles an hour. Well, that's Calderdale's aim as well. It's about behaviour change in you as a driver. Now, I drive and I like fast, high-performance cars. I like watching Formula 1 and MotoGP. I like speed. I'm not saying that it's an easy one to accept is driving at 20 miles an hour. But if you didn't know the speed limit in a residential area, would you drive at 20 miles an hour until you observe the 30 mile an hour sign? One could argue that this conflicts with the highway code, and that was talked about earlier on. A 30 mile an hour limit usually applies to all traffic on all roads with street lighting unless signs show otherwise. But it's about you getting in your car and just wanting to drive at a slower speed. Even me who likes high performance cars and speed, it's about me being responsible for my actions. Why can't we lobby the Department for Transport to change that text in the Highways Code to 20 miles an hour? Is that something Brake could do? Because we've talked about lobbying MPs. I think that's a real key one for us, is get it changed in the Highway Code. And young drivers coming through the process of learning to drive, they don't even know about 30 miles an hour. It's all about 20 miles an hour. So, from a point of view of Calderdale, it's split into 2 parts really. There's capital funding, which is the signage, the carriageway markings, etc., and that's secured via West Yorkshire Local Transport Plan under the West Yorkshire Combined Authority, and we have £525,000, give or take, over 3 years that's allocated to us over under the Safer Roads theme. The revenue funding element of delivering 20 now comes from public health, and that includes staff time, design, marketing, consultation and communication, and that is public health match funding at the value of £500,000 over the same period. Now, just going back to the capital funding element, the original local transport plan allocation was more based on evidence-led killed and seriously injured statistics for much smaller areas. What we've had to do is we've had to change the way that money is released to us in terms of justifying why we want to maybe deliver 20 mile an hour in a more of a blanket approach over a larger residential area. So we had to build up a business case to the Combined Authority that basically hold the purse strings for the local transport plan to change it to more of a blanket-led approach, more spending funding on 20 mile an hour for over residential areas. Calderdale's current position is 9 areas of Calderdale are already 20 miles an hour. That includes 7 areas that were pre-public health involvement. 15 months into a public health part-funded 3-year implementation plan, and our aim is to deliver at least another 8 residential 20 mile an hour limits in Calderdale. Just as an example, we did some speed monitoring before and after implementation of a 20 limit in Elland, which is just north of Halifax, and that showed a decrease of up to 6 miles per hour on one of the particular roads, so that's kind of positive. Delivery. Well, implementing 20-mile-an-hour speed limits on the vast majority of residential roads by the end of 2017, but we're not really wanting to promote 20 mile an hour at all on A or B roads. As far as I'm aware, based on my highways background, A and B roads are there to facilitate the movement of traffic from one district to another. It's there to shift freight from one district to another. What we don't want to be doing is slowing down the movement of that traffic. However, that's not to say that they won't be assessed. If there's a specific argument for getting a 20 in on an A or B road, we will look at it and we will assess it on its individual merits. But the majority of what we're doing is residential roads and streets by the end of 2017. So it's phased rollout, as we said, over 3 years. It takes 9 months from design to delivery, intertwined with campaign planning and attitude insight. Areas are prioritised by road safety benefits to a certain extent, targeting areas with a high numbers of seriously injured, and then targeting areas which enable existing or planned 20 areas to link in with each other, so increasing that area that you're hitting with a 20 mile an hour and it being more of a blanket approach. The challenges, well, planning and design, this is resource intensive and does require obviously a lot of research, local knowledge and site visits to avoid placing the signs in trees or outside windows. And with the cutbacks in landscaping maintenance on the public highway, what we don't want to be doing is erecting a sign where in a few weeks time with the perfect conditions outside for growing, it gets covered by a tree or a bush. Installation, each area takes 4 weeks to install. Potential confusion for drivers does happen. Gateways first followed by repeater signs. Gateways are covered with a coming soon message prior to the day, and we'll go back to that in a minute because that has proved to be a challenge just this last week. And then the campaign side of it is a phased area of implementation means complicated campaign planning. I just refer back to the coming soon signs. This is what we do in Calderdale. On the left you can see it's a sign that's been erected like the one on the right, but because it's not, we haven't got the actual date for the legalities of 20 mile an hour to be in place in terms of the traffic regulation order, we have to cover them up. And there's two choices. You can either cover them up with a black plastic bag, or you can put a bit of marketing and engagement on it, which is a decal that just goes on top of the 20 mile an hour and provides people with information so there's no confusion. What we've had this last week is we've had a councillor in Calderdale who's expressed concern to the chief executive that it is a waste of money, a waste of funds putting something on like that, because clearly somebody's got to put it up there once the 20 decals in place, and then somebody's got to take it down. Yes, hold my hands up and say that is a justified criticism, but I think the thing is it's just what could we do? We could put a plastic bag over it, as I said, but personally I think for the cost of what they are, and I'm sorry I don't have that exact cost with me today, I think that's a really effective way of telling people that it's coming soon. It provides you with some information in terms of a website to look at, and that would give you details of when the actual date of launch is going to be. So I'm quite defensive of that as an idea, but I have to accept that not everybody's on the same page as our 20s team that Bridget and Sheridan, who are my two that do a fantastic job in Calderdale, deal with. But you know, others may have experience of something similar. Other challenges, well, consultation with stakeholders on boundaries and roads can be lengthy. Where do you draw the line on a 20 limit? Political interest could result in changes to 20 limit boundaries, either increasing or decreasing the area, and we've had that in Elland where we got political interest in it and they wanted the 20 to be increased in size. Bus operators may express concerns as to the impact a 20 limit has on their bus timetables. Bus routes can be contentious, and it's an important point is that you know, we want to promote 20s, we want to create this livable street, but is there an impact on somebody like a bus operator where you're forcing them to drive, or not forcing them, hoping they can drive at a slower speed? So it's important to have early engagement with people like that, organisations like that. And then legally changing the speed limit through a traffic regulation order requires advertising to the general public, to the local press, and to erect these notices on appropriate lampposts in the area affected. Now, depending on the size of the area, the latter could result in hundreds of notices having to be printed off and displayed on lighting columns. That is very, very resource intensive. And then when you're finished, it has to be removed and disposed of. The thing is somebody's got to do this type of thing. It's a manual job where we have to pay somebody to do that. So that is a challenge for us that I think initially when we were looking at timescales for this, I didn't necessarily take that into account, just how time consuming that could be. Opportunities. Well, feedback and engagement, it's a great opportunity to get local residents on board right from the beginning, rather than at campaign delivery. And I think that's a real key message, is if we can get communities on board before we've even started to erect signage, putting the 20 decal up and putting the cover over it with the 20s coming soon, I think we can really benefit from that. Locals are always willing to give their view, which is good, absolutely. If data collected, a great resource for marketing, testing the campaign messaging that we're promoting. And that's not to say that it's right. You know, it could well be that we change it in a few months based on some really good quality feedback from the data that we've already collected. Opportunity to collect data on wider health attitudes as well, relating to 20 miles an hour, e.g. active travel and physical activity. So this is our website called Living Calderdale, hashtag Love Our Streets. It's already up and running is the website. So I really do urge you to have a look at this. It's an excellent piece of work, and it can allow us to engage with the communities. We have Facebook and Twitter, and at the moment, and forgive me if you can't see that too clearly on the left-hand side, we've got 1,023 likes, and that's growing. It allows us to share face-to-face engagement much wider, because it's real time, where you get feedback from Facebook and feedback from Twitter. And it links to 20 mile an hour facts and benefits, of which 20's Plenty have used in terms of their FAQs. We've developed that so that we've got something hopefully where we can answer people's questions or fears about 20s without necessarily getting involved with them and answering those questions face to face or through an email or through a letter. So that's the address for the website, 20 mile an hour, 20mph.livingcalderdale.co.uk, and I say it's a really interesting website that even has a video on it, and I've tried my very best to put a video on to finish off this presentation, but I'm not the most technically savvy, so I apologise for that. But I've got a link, or I've got an address for you to type in and see whether or not you can have a look at that on your own. There's a provocative quote there about love every breath, accelerating from 0 to 20 mile an hour emits less pollution than 0 to 30. And you can even see that we've got competition, and say apologies that it's not fully shown here. Win a car CCTV for your vehicle by just taking a basic quiz, asking you some basic questions about the highway code and road safety. So coming soon, we have a face-to-face community engagement with locals across towns and villages. We are currently developing a questionnaire where we want to try and get some evidence before we actually implement a 20 mile an hour in Todmorden, for instance. And then what we want to do is go back in with the same questionnaire that asks the same type of people 12 months later on to see whether or not their attitudes have changed to 20 mile an hour. That's something that's currently in development, and that's come from our Public Health Director, who really wants to start to capture some evidence, similar to what Edinburgh's done, in terms of being able to say, yes, behaviour change as a result of 20 mile an hour, more children are cycling, more people are walking. If we can say that in our local context, in Todmorden, for instance, then hopefully we can use that to help promote other 20s, not only in Calderdale, but in West Yorkshire and nationally. And we're looking at maybe doing some video capture of local engagements to share and reach out to thousands more across social media and facilitate two-way discussions between all members of the community. That's the address again for the website, but it does, when you actually go onto that website, you'll see the video, and it's only about 1 minute 20 seconds long. I'm going to leave you to watch it and try and guess who the narrator is of the video. As I say, I wanted to show you, and then I was going to ask people afterwards to see whether or not they knew who it was. I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to leave it for you to try and work out who it is. It's a celebrity, I would say, probably on a C list personally, but I'll leave you to try and guess who that is. So that's part of the Love Our Streets video, which I attempted to show you. It's simplistic. It's designed for adults, I should say children as much as adults, and I hope you do actually get to look at it. And that's it from me. So thank you for listening to me on 20s and public health input, and good luck with it.
Thank you very much, Tim. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that really in-depth presentation. I think there's plenty of ideas and really useful information there to take away from that. If you have any questions at all for Tim, now's the time, so please feel free to put your questions to him using our question panel on the right-hand side of your screen. Likewise, if you have any questions later on, then I know Tim would be more than happy to take those, and we can facilitate that through break. So that should hopefully work. So thank you very much to everyone who has attended today. I will just allow any questions to come in, but thank you very much, Tim. There, and I think, as he mentioned there, with regards to the video and the social media and partnership working, this is where people like 20s Plenty and Break can come very much in helpful to yourselves, and we do envisage that we are here to kind of assist and help you and learn from the expertise of other authorities that have already implemented 20 mile an hour. There's nothing better than using the expertise of people like Tim who've already implemented, already gone through the process of looking at all these benefits, and why reinvent the wheel? Feel free to use this information in the presentations after here. As my colleague Ellie mentioned earlier, we have a whole toolkit of free resources available for you, ranging from posters to website banners, etc., for you to use and to help engage your staff and councillors and officers within the council, but also once you get to the stage of getting this message out to the wider public. So please feel free to use that. This information will be emailed to you following this webinar, so we will send you a link to the recording of this webinar plus the presentation. So if you've got any colleagues who couldn't make it today, or anybody else that you feel it would benefit from that, I know Tim has covered a lot of points, and there's some really useful slides in his presentation, so that'll be available on our website to look at and kind of use in your own time. I'd like to thank Tim and Anna both for their time today, and giving up their time to kind of share their expertise, and hopefully you will have found these useful. So I have a couple of quick questions here. So I'll open this to yourself first, Tim, but Anna, you might be able to step in as well. So bear with me a second whilst I open the questions. So we've got Jennifer Coombs. She says, are there any examples of school lesson plans or presentations or assemblies that have been used around 20 mile an hour? Tim, I'll open this to yourself first. Have you had any kind of engagement with schools, and has the council produced anything like this where you go out into schools and try and engage them around this?
Is that question to me? Dave,
yeah. If you take
right.
it first, Tim, and I'll ask Anna as well.
In the slides before, I talked about our road safety education team coming in to work with us to try and promote active travel, and obviously talk about 20 mile an hour. We've just got that team shifting over from highways over to public health at the moment. And one of the first things that we want to do with one of the team leaders, Lisa Graham, who works for Calderdale Council in our road safety team, is to try and develop a bit of an education class for children, which includes the context of 20 mile an hour and understanding the impacts of that. Now, it's difficult really to develop just one lesson, if you like, because road safety education goes into different year groups, and it goes from basic pedestrian roadside skills to wearing a seatbelt in a car, through primary schools up to the older groups in high schools. So unfortunately, just at the moment, we don't have anything specific in terms of educational classes, but that is something that we're going to develop with the road safety education team to work alongside the delivery partners for 20 mile an hour. So I'm not in a position to really give you much on that, so apologies.
With regards to break, Jennifer, along with the presentations, I'll make a note to send some useful links. So we have quite a few resources available, and also links on community resources and kind of getting this message in, and also some of the work that we do around our SLOW campaign, which is particularly driving at 20 around school, shops and communities and homes. So there might be some useful information there that you can use for that. We also have, as part of our package, we do have an Engaging Young People training program where we work with young people and professionals who go out into schools, and as part of that we do have some ideas on how to kind of get that message out to young people, but it depends obviously on what age group, whether you're talking teenagers and sixth formers who are looking to drive soon and looking to drive and be out on the roads, or whether you're looking at talking to your young children who are obviously those vulnerable road users who are going to be using our streets. So so there are various things out there. Hannah, I'll just open this to yourself as well. Is there anything that you can add from 20's Plenty?
Yes, Lancashire have both a primary school pack and a secondary school pack, I know. So Lancashire were the first local authority to do it county-wide, so they have a lot of resources. 20's Plenty for us has a braking distance challenge handout as at one of our briefings as an activity to do at a school fair or sports day, where you put out cones and try to get people to guess where the stopping distances would be at different speeds. So a visual idea of how much difference it makes between 20 and 30. 20 is 3 car lengths, whereas 30 is 6 car lengths in stopping distance, for instance. We have a briefing about children and families and the benefits. We have a briefing about playing out and how 20 mile an hour is necessary for play. Most of our resources are aimed at campaigners for 20 mile an hour limits, rather than marketing when the decision has already been made, however.
Fantastic, thanks very much, Anna, and we'll try and get a link to a lot of that information on our website as part of the resources that we receive at the end of this webinar. So Jennifer has said many thanks for that. So she's another topic here, which is an interesting one. She says, any tips on engaging taxi drivers would be great too. So Tim, I'm going to go back to you again, because I know you mentioned about getting on kind of stakeholders and engaging early on, and I know through Anna's presentation she mentioned about this as well, and obviously something that we're very proactive about is engaging and getting talking to people early on. And you mentioned, Tim, about bus companies. have you had, what, I mean, first of all, yeah, what's your advice with regards to taxi drivers, and have you had any implementation or any advice with them? I know in Edinburgh in particular, they did have some backlash, I think, from taxi drivers, and I know Anna's probably got some more examples as well. But to yourself first, Tim, have you got any kind of advice around that particular group of drivers?
It's an excellent point. It really is. I mean, taxis, I mean, we're all probably seen taxis going at excessive speeds, particularly late on an evening on a Saturday or Friday night. And you're right. I mean, it is something that they're a key stakeholder. There's lots of them in Huddersfield and Halifax. Yes, we do try and consult with all stakeholders, but part of the problem sometimes with stakeholder engagement is it's trying to empower them to get involved with those engagements, and sometimes it's not always something that we're successful at, and hence why I say that we can learn from some of the mistakes that we've made in the past. The bus operators are a key stakeholder, as you say, but how can we engage more with local taxi drivers? I think that there's a debate there to be had. And we need to make sure that we're hitting either the licensing authority with trying to get a bit of buy-in from the licensing authority to try and get taxi drivers involved, or we need to be touching base with some of the bigger taxi companies in Halifax to try and get them on board. But it's a really good point about engagement with taxi drivers.
And I think it is something that can work as well, going back to Calderdale, and I'm sure Tim's probably aware of this, probably 7 or 8 years ago now, and there's a massive seatbelt campaign run in Calderdale by some very big supporters of Brake, but it was run kind of through, there was a doctor at Calderdale Hospital, and also they got the council and everybody on board with regards to seatbelt usage, because they found there was a big decline in that. They managed to get taxi drivers on board with that. So as you're probably aware, that taxi drivers do not need to wear their seatbelts when they've got passengers in their car. But what they did was they had a massive campaign. They got taxi drivers on board early on, got messaging on board, and got them for a trial period to wear their seatbelts. And it had a massive impact on people getting into the car, seeing a taxi driver's wearing their seatbelt, and it's this nudge theory that, yeah, people who got into their taxi wore their seatbelts as well, and they got that message out there. So there are ways that actually you can engage with people like with drivers and with stakeholders early on, and it is about having conversations with them and hopefully getting them on board early on, and it can make a difference. Anna, have you got any advice?
Yes. In Liverpool, taxi receipts now have a 20-mile-an-hour logo on them. That happened this month. In Brighton, they gave out stickers to the taxi drivers to put in their taxis saying 20 miles an hour, it's the law, because they thought that taxi drivers were having potentially problems from their passengers saying speed up, whereas the stickers just mean that the clients have to understand that it's 20 and that everybody complies with the 20. I know that we have a briefing sheet on why taxi drivers benefit from 20, so that can be part of the what's sent round afterwards. Yeah, that's all I know about taxis.
No, most helpful. So I think that's hopefully answered that question as well. So we move on now. So thank you very much for your questions and for being involved today. I'd like to thank Ellie again for giving information about Brake, and also from Anna and Tim, who I think you agree have given some brilliant insight into the world of 20 mile an hour and how this can work and be implemented, and hopefully will give you some ideas whether you're already in the process of implementing these or whether it's something that you're looking to engage. Like I say, the bullet points and information that both Anna and Tim have given are there to help you and hopefully put across the positive messaging to other people within your organisation, council, community, whatever it may be. So hopefully you have found these useful. I'd like to thank Bridgestone as well for sponsoring this webinar today, and thanks to their sponsorship we've managed to produce everything that we've got available, and it's free to attend, so which makes it really accessible and great for everybody to use. So like I say, at the end of today's webinar you will receive the presentations, a recording, the toolkit that we have available. Also I'll include some links of the Living Calderdale website, some school help information, and some briefing sheets that 20 Plenty have. So hopefully there will be lots of information there, but as always, if you do have any questions or need any help at all, then please do not hesitate to get in touch with Break. That is why we are here, to help work with professionals such as yourself on this idea. As Tim mentioned, we will continue our campaign work, and we will continue campaigning the government alongside our Go20 coalition members to try and make change and make our streets safer. But in the meantime, we are also here to kind of help you as professionals make your job a lot easier. So thank you very much for attending today and listening, and hopefully we will see you at one of our future events soon. Thanks again.